StorySurvive. There are moments on the internet that start as curiosity and end as horror. A thrift shopper finds a film strip that shouldn't exist. An anonymous user mixes two chemicals that turn into a weapon. A criminology student designs a survey that becomes a murder plan. And a man discovers the notes that were never meant to be read because he wrote them while dying. 4 stories, 4 digital footprints of madness, obsession, and chance, each one reminding us that the line between curiosity and catastrophe is thinner than a pixel. What you're about to hear are real accounts of mystery, fear, and fatal mistakes. Stories the internet tried to forget. But tonight, we dig them back up. Welcome to the internet's darkest discoveries. Stay till the end, because truth in these stories is far stranger and far deadlier than fiction. Unsolved, the bloody film strip found in a Kodak box. We've all wandered through thrift stores, searching for forgotten treasures among dusty relics. But sometimes, what you find isn't valuable, it's vile. What one shopper discovered inside an old Kodak box didn't just disturb them, it summoned the police. The story began on December 10th, 2024. A Reddit user named Superheatran2 shared their find on the subreddit r/RBI2. Inside an old Kodak carousel box, they found a single film strip, and what was printed on it was not something you'd ever want to see. The image showed what appeared to be an undressed human body, lying between a bed and a wall. Blood splattered across the sheets, staining the walls. This wasn't staged. The user described it as disturbingly real, far too authentic to be dismissed as art. Panicked, the user grabbed the photo and ran out of the store. They went next door and called the non-emergency police line, convinced the image was evidence of a real crime. They later wrote, "My whole body jolted when I saw it." An officer arrived about an hour later. He followed the user back to the thrift store, examined the box, and sent a photo of the film to a colleague. Then he took the entire carousel and image to be processed by investigators. The user explained they had opened the box only because they thought it contained a family photo. It definitely wasn't. Online, Reddit users began analyzing the photos and details. Many agreed it looked authentic. Even experts pointed out the natural blood patterns, suggesting the victim may have struggled before dying. The film itself was sticky, aged probably from the 1980s or early 1990s. That only deepened the mystery. 3 main theories emerged. 1. The film was a trophy photo taken by a serial killer. 2. It belonged to a criminology teacher who used real images for lectures. And 3. The most likely, it came from law enforcement archives, accidentally donated after a case was closed decades ago. No updates ever came from the original poster. No confirmation, no follow-up from the police. That single film strip found by chance in a dusty thrift store remains a mystery. A snapshot of horror that slipped through time and landed in the hands of a stranger. Until the day the truth is revealed, that film remains what it's always been. A blood-stained photograph from nowhere. And a story that refuses to fade. Fatal Folly, the 4chan chlorine gas experiment. The internet is a breeding ground for dangerous dares, but sometimes those dares involve deadly chemicals. On a dark corner of the web, a user thought they could mix 2 common household items to create something spectacular. What they created instead was a silent, lethal weapon. Chlorine gas. This is the story of the 4chan user who, in a reckless pursuit of online notoriety, risked his own life, and possibly the lives of his neighbors, through a catastrophic science experiment gone wrong. On September 19th, 2017, an anonymous 4chan user posted a photo captioned, "About to test out this gas mask." The image showed 2 bottles of vinegar and bleach. While many dismissed the post as trolling, a few egged him on, commenting, "Okay, post results if you live." The combination of bleach and vinegar produces a deadly chemical, concentrated chlorine gas. It was used as a weapon in the First World War. Either the poster didn't understand the chemistry, or he severely underestimated the danger. Only 20 minutes later, the OP returned, writing, "What could go wrong? We'll report." He posted a picture of vinegar being poured into a yellow substance. Moments later, reality began to turn horrifyingly real. His next update was short and chilling. "Holy, it hurts. Might have to go to the hospital." The accompanying image showed his arm covered in blisters, turning red, angry, raw, and peeling. The signs perfectly matched chlorine gas exposure. Panic exploded on the thread. Users warned him, "You fool! That will burn your skin and soak into your surroundings." Others added grimly that even 400 parts per million could be fatal. One user summed it up in a line that silenced the thread. Chlorine gas acts on flesh, not just your lungs. It melts flesh. It makes people drown in their own melted lungs. Despite the pain, the OP made 2 more posts, each one worse, each one showing his arm in deeper decay. It's starting to peel and fall off. Still hurts. And then, his final message appeared. 1 word. Goodbye. The user vanished from the thread. Did this reckless stunt cost him his life? Many believed he had died, perhaps even endangering others nearby. But despite the online hysteria, no credible reports ever confirmed his death. No fire, no hazmat response, no police report. Nothing. That absence of evidence led to another theory, that it was all a hoax. Some pointed out that the skin burns looked suspiciously like makeup, or even an exfoliation reaction. After all, if he was dying from chlorine gas, how could he calmly frame photos and keep posting for half an hour? If it was fake, it was one of the most convincing hoaxes the site ever saw. A morbid display built to shock and terrify. But if it was real, then the OP may have died moments after typing that final word. Either way, the gas mask experiment remains one of 4chan's most disturbing mysteries. A fatal folly born from curiosity, and a chilling reminder: some experiments should never be done.
If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share your opinion, and subscribe. Your support helps uncover the next mystery.
Brian Kauberger's research, The Murder Survey. The study of crime often requires getting inside the minds of criminals. But what happens when the student conducting the research isn't just seeking answers? He's seeking instruction. This is the story of a criminology PhD student who posted a detailed survey on Reddit, not for his doctorate, but to plan one of the most brutal and baffling unsolved crimes in modern American history. It began on May 31st, 2022. Across several crime-related subreddits, places like r/prison and r/felon, a user named Criminology student shared a research request. It looked legitimate, polite, academic. He asked ex-convicts to take part in a study exploring how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. The post even listed a full name, Brian Kauberger, and a real DeSales University email address. Everything appeared credible. But the questions were different, unnervingly specific, operational. He asked, "How did you travel to and enter the location where the crime occurred? How did you approach the victim? How did you leave the scene?" He reposted the same survey multiple times. No one realized they weren't filling out research. They were filling out a tutorial. 5 months later, November 13th, 2022. A quiet house in Moscow, Idaho. Police respond to a 911 call. Inside, 4 University of Idaho students are found dead. Each had suffered multiple stab wounds. The scene was brutal, but eerily deliberate. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was disturbed. Just 4 lives ended. The only piece of evidence left behind was a leather knife sheath lying under one of the victims. That single clue cracked the case. Investigators studied CCTV footage and spotted a white Hyundai Elantra leaving the area at high speed. Tracing the car led them to a 28-year-old PhD criminology student, Brian Christopher Kauberger, the same man behind the Reddit survey. His phone records revealed a pattern. He'd visited the victim's house several times before the murders. But on the night of the killings, his phone suddenly went dark. No signal. No movement. A perfect blackout during the time of the crime. That single digital silence spoke volumes. On December 30th, 2022, police arrested Kauberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, over 2,500 miles away from the crime scene. DNA found on the knife sheath matched his profile perfectly. The criminology student had become the criminal. When investigators examined his posts and notes, the motive became clearer and far more disturbing. He wasn't studying crime to understand it. He was studying it to perfect it. His Reddit survey wasn't for research. It was a lesson plan. A guide to learn how others carried out their crimes and how to avoid their mistakes. Kauberger suffered from a psychological condition called visual snow, a neurological disorder that caused him to feel detached from reality. He described himself as depersonalized, emotionless, incapable of empathy. He also idolized Ted Bundy, another serial killer with a background in criminology. He believed he could commit the perfect crime. But in the end, the trail he left online, the very data he used for his research, became the evidence that destroyed him. A student of murder who turned his thesis into a crime scene, and in doing so, proved one final lesson. You can study evil all you want, but once you try to become it, you'll never escape its consequence. Life saved. The post-it notes of carbon monoxide poisoning. The human mind can be terrifyingly fragile. When we start to forget things, when we feel confused, lost, or disoriented, we blame stress, exhaustion, maybe age. But for one man, a series of strange handwritten notes appearing in his own apartment would lead him down a spiral of paranoia. A paranoia that was entirely justified. Justified, but for a reason far more sinister than he could ever imagine. This is the story of how Reddit saved a man's life from a silent, invisible killer. It began in May 2015. A Reddit user named r.bradbury1920 made a post describing something deeply unsettling. He'd been finding yellow post-it notes around his apartment, each one written in handwriting that wasn't his. Reminders for errands, things he'd never told anyone about. At first he thought he'd done it himself, maybe while half asleep. We've all done something weird at 3 a.m., right? But then, the notes kept appearing, and the messages got stranger. One said, "Save your documents." Another read, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you, but it's important we do." That one felt like a warning. Panicking, he set up a webcam aimed right at his desk, hoping to catch whoever was sneaking into his apartment. But the next morning, there was nothing. No footage. The recordings were gone. His recycling bin had been emptied, and he swore he hadn't done it. Someone had noticed the camera and deleted the evidence. Then came the final shock. He compared one of the post-it notes to an old letter from his landlord. The handwriting was identical. His paranoia spiked. Was the landlord breaking in? Was someone living inside the walls? The Reddit thread exploded with theories. Sleepwalking, pranks, stalking, even delusion. But buried deep in the comments was one reply that would change everything. A user named Cocker Locke, an engineer named Ken Roach, noticed something small. In an older post, R. Bradbury had mentioned that his bedroom was narrow, windowless, and hard to ventilate. Ken wrote, "It's likely you're writing the notes yourself, but forgetting. Is there a chance you have a carbon monoxide leak in your building?" Carbon monoxide, an odorless, invisible gas. At low levels, it causes headaches, confusion, memory loss. At high levels, it kills. Suddenly, everything made sense. The headaches, the confusion, the memory lapses, the paranoia. All of it, symptoms of poisoning. R. Bradbury replied almost immediately, "I've had really bad headaches, and I actually do have a CO detector. Guess I should probably take that out of the box and plug it in." That single sentence may have saved his life. The Reddit thread erupted. "Ken, you just saved a man's life. The internet did something good today." Later, people discovered the handwriting mystery wasn't supernatural at all. Under the effects of carbon monoxide, Bradbury's mind had been disoriented, his motor control impaired, and he'd unknowingly imitated his landlord's handwriting. But the mystery didn't matter anymore, because those strange yellow notes weren't messages from an intruder. They were warnings from himself. Desperate reminders scrawled by a mind that was slowly losing oxygen and begging to be heard. In the end, the only thing standing between life and death was a stranger's comment and a carbon monoxide detector still sitting in its box. Sometimes, the internet saves you from yourself.
If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share your opinion, and subscribe. Your support helps uncover the next mystery.